Mm-hmm. It was on 15. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's right here.
Hard to read.
Yeah, it's 6.
Oh, upside down.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
okay.
easier to read
Well,
the right way.
recording has started.
Well done.
All right. Good evening, everybody. This is the City Council workshop for the City of Bonnie Lake for December 6th, 2022. Hadn't been here in a while, so let's dust off the rust and salute our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Ms. Gallagher, could you call the roll, please?
Mayor McCullough,
I'm here.
Deputy Mayor Carter,
Here.
Councilmember Baldwin, here. Councilmember Evans,
Here.
Councilmember Fullerton, here. Councilmember McClymans, Councilmember Swatman,
Present.
Councilmember Watson.
Here.
Oh, Councilmember Evans.
Motion to excuse Councilmember McClymans.
Okay. Everybody agree we can excuse Councilmember McClymans?
Yes.
Yeah.
This time only.
Okay, for this time only.
Hi.
Yes.
I was kind of wondering about that. That's point of order, this being a workshop, if we actually had to do a formal motion on simply for the meeting.
Councilmember Swatman will tell you all we have to do is do it once at the end of the year.
Yeah, you could do it whenever.
Oh, right on.
You
Okay.
can, like,
Well, now we will have council open discussion if we hadn't started that already. Anybody? Councilmember Watson's, Councilmember Swatman beat you to the punch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know it's my understanding. We had an initial presentation on the utility rates and such, and we had the initial recommendation looks like that there's no necessity for a sewer rate, the basic O&M increase for next year, but yet our code is pre-programmed. Previously, the previous rate study indicated that we'd have to do that. So I think some of the administrative folks was telling us that we needed a piece of legislation to basically deactivate the pre-programmed increase that's going to be in play.
Yeah.
Right? Is that correct?
I believe so, yes.
So I was hoping to see, I guess we have to do that this year.
Which
So,
is
'cause-
one more meeting.
Yeah, so at the next meeting, if appropriate, we would need the correct piece of legislation to deactivate or whatever the pre-programmed increase according to the old rate study, which the new rate study says nothing for that year.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Any discussion on that, or everybody agree that that would, per the code, that's the way we need to go?
Can I just get clarification
Yeah.
for both water and sewer?
No. It's my understanding. Again, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was just the sewer. It was only the sewer.
Sherry's nodding yes.
Oh, okay. Ms. Ryerson.
You have a programmed rate increase for both, but the rate study showed that you would not need an increase in 2023 or a few years forward for the sewer.
So it's just the sewer, correct? Yes.
That would be my recommendation.
Could we make a motion or to have legislation brought forward next week to suspend 23 and 24? I mean,
Well, just 23 because
she said 2 years.
Right, but you guys are going to have continued discussions about the rates, so I would adjust them at that time.
Okay.
Right. So just for the sewer, piece of legislation for next week's consideration at the full council.
All right, that sounds good. We'll get that on the agenda.
Is that okay for the consent agenda?
Yes. Oh, well, here.
I'm fine with it.
Everybody's prepared.
He's trying to build this consent. He has this dream of a consent agenda for the last meeting, right?
CDC squashed that.
changed
CDC squashed that dream.
Did we?
That's a shame.
We were, imagine that, huh? Wonderful council input. And second item, if I could, I know, Mr. Mayor, you weren't here at the last council gathering meeting and we had kind of an elongated discussion on the COLA issue, and I'm still wanting to touch on that because I'm still kind of trying to figure out where that should land, because is it 2.75 that we passed last meeting, something like that?
Yes, I believe that was it. That hasn't changed, has it? John?
Right.
Yeah.
Because we approved the 2.75,
Right.
and still I'm looking for input from the council or the administration or what have you, because that does not match any of the CPI figures that I'm aware of, right? Because we're doing a COLA that's attached directly to a CPI. We're running a business, we're running a corporation, and we have employees that need to be compensated appropriately. And our legislation that the council says that we match or come very close to matching up with the COLA is equal to like CPI, right?
Right.
Something like that. And all of the stuff that I've been told is the CPI is like 8, 9, it's pretty high. So 2.75 is not getting you there. There's other issues going on with, salary compression, which is separate from the thing, and wages and all, and raises and all. That's a separate issue than an actual COLA, because what a person earns has to equal what the inflation rate. You want them to stay even, right? Because we got a bunch of folks, that are senior, that are like an example of being at the top of their step, and then they don't get a raise. There is no raise for them unless you actually adjust their salary band, which we're going to look at some point. They had to stay even. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not an economist, right? If you're not giving your folks, we had one here.
Gary Lee,
Gary, we can get one up. If you're not giving them an 8 or whatever to keep up with whatever you're saying with the CPI, then you're actually reducing their pay.
And realistically, I've really never known a COLA that's actually matched a CPI before. Normally, the CPI does go up a little bit higher. Councilmember Evans, and then Ms. Ryerson, because she's had her hand up too.
I'm neither in or out of this, but I'm just trying to back Councilmember Swatman back up. Social Security determined that on October 13th of this year, their COLA was going to be 8.7%. So just to lend some credence to what he was talking about. In 2021, Social Security was a 5.9, 2020, 1.3, 2019, 1.6, 2018, 2.8. So prior to last year and this year, a 2.75 would have been more than enough of a COLA going back to 2011. There was nothing higher than that. As far as how Social Security determines, I don't know how closely we relate to that, but that's what's out there as far as data goes. So.
And I wonder if that coincides with COVID, because those are 2 COVID years when there was work.
No, pre-COVID it was down to 0.7 before that, and
okay.
Yeah.
All right, Ms. Ryerson.
Yeah, as Councilmember Swatman knows, I typically won't comment on anything to do with wages because I absolutely stand to benefit. However, him and I did have a conversation about this briefly, and when we did our salary study based upon Sumner's study back in February, we pretty much went in line with Sumner. And so I just wanted to bring it to the council's attention, if you aren't aware, that Sumner is either set to increase or has already increased. Maybe John can help me out here. The non-represented wages by 6%. So that means that we are already going to be out of line with the salary survey that we did in a line with Sumner back in February.
I believe Sumner's was on the docket last night. I don't know if it passed or not.
Okay. Yeah, we will have to research that. I also want to know what Warding, Buckley, and Puyallup or what they've done lately as well.
We have a survey coming, right? Or
We have a salary survey.
Salary
survey,
yeah, which is
COLA thing, though, yeah.
Right.
In fact, we were talking, Brian, HR and I were talking about that today. When are we due to have the salary survey?
Probably around June.
It can't go forward unless the budget passes.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, we'll get there on that. But the COLA is a little bit of a separate thing,
Yeah.
right? Then because yeah. because the COLAs, if you're again, I'm just hung up on that concept of it should match, or it should, you should be doing it for a reason if you're going to do it. It's fine to say, oh, I'm not going to do a COLA, but then to say, oh, our COLA is supposed to match the CPI, and it's like, oh, 2.75. Now, excuse me, I'm an employee of the corporation, and they're telling me that they give COLA based on CPI, and now they're only giving me a 3%. I'm pissed off as an employee, right? You're reducing my pay. So do we want to keep the professionals in the city or not? Or do we want to do COLAs? That's the challenge, right? I don't know. It's new arena for me in my life, right? We've never seen this kind of stuff before. It's this kind of inflation. But it's a fact that if you go to your gas station, if you go to I'm going to buy Chipotle tonight for dinner or something like that, and you're going to spend $35 for like a couple of tacos and stuff. Give me a break.
Madam Clerk, you are still here. What's our agenda look like for next week? How big is it?
Well, it's the end of the year, so we have a lot on the consent agenda. We have nothing for full council issues or committee issues. And I expect probably things are going to change between now and Thursday when we put it out, since it is the last meeting for the year.
Right.
CDC, if I may, CDC did move the comprehensive plan grant to CDC issues. So we do have one item on CDC issues so far.
Okay, so CDC issues, what I would suggest, it being the end of the year and it being a relevant topic, is that we put it on for a full council issue next week. Between now and next week, we will get the survey, the local survey done of all of our
be great.
Of what the towns have done and if they've passed or not, and that way we'll have a lot more data to be able to.
That'd be great. Yeah, I appreciate that, Mr. Mayor. I think it's important that we appropriately compensate our employees. I think.
Oh, I agree.
Core, that's the definition of our city. Is the old mayor said that without the employees, you wouldn't have a city. So.
Well, that is indeed true, and I can tell you for my this past year, my first year in office, trying to retain all of the people except for Mr. Johnstone, who I've been trying to get rid of for the last.
He just keeps coming back.
That has been a challenge. So no, I agree with what you're saying, Councilmember Swan.
So if I might, what do you want me to put in the packet for next week?
Well, what'll be in the it'll be for
2.75 is already passed, so that's
It's an additional COLA increase
with just a blank number in there.
Well, apparently they'd like to look at the surrounding cities to see what has happened there.
You're right, and we should be able to have that by Thursday. Unless I want to frustrate Madam Clerk up there and put it on for Tuesday at 5 p.m. next week. I think by Thursday we should have some pretty solid numbers to be able to add to the agenda. Councilmember Baldwin.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention. I am curious as far as not against increases to be able to match what's going on, in the world, I guess. But what is this in terms of like hard numbers, rather than just percentages? Like, what are the actual numbers that it would require, and where would that monies come from?
Well, that would be a question, I believe, for Ms. Ryerson. Yes, who does have her hand up.
Yeah, I've actually already ran these numbers for Councilmember Swatman. Correct me if I'm wrong, Councilmember Swatman, going off memory here, but I believe it's $41,000 for the non-reps in salary per percent. You want to go above 3%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Per percent.
Per percent. So if you went up to 3, it's not going to cost any more. If you go 3 to 4, it's going to be 41,000. If you go 3 to 5, then it's going to be 82,000.
Yep.
Okay. Are you proposing that we get it to the 8.7?
Well, I would say you'd want to get close to that. Again, you have to look at what the cities are doing. Some kind of rationale that you can connect it together.
Yeah.
It's not a raise, right?
Right.
It's you're trying to appropriately compensate the employees for the economic times they live in because of the prices of everything, so that you can keep them even. You're trying to do that, right? It has nothing. Raises is kind of a different scenario, and salary bands and everything. So you have to do that, in my mind, and connect it together. So, I'm seriously looking at like a 5% addition on top of what they're getting, to get them to that thing. Because, again, as Councilmember Evans identified, is the feds draw the line at 8.7, and they're not going to throw money away unnecessarily, and they're like I said, economists that do this type of work, and that they figured that out. So I'm just going off of numbers I've seen. So.
At 5%, it's $205,000
Right.
per year
Yeah.
in perpetuity.
Yeah. So, and again, to me, it's not the cost that I'm really, oddly enough, looking at. It's what you should do, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But you can't just look at that. You have
Yeah.
to look at the consequence of that. Or
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
the-
because you're,
the reaction of that. And Sherry, how are we going to find another $400,000?
Well, and it's going to be more than that because, the union is
That's just
going to
the
be
non-reps,
looking
yeah.
at it too, as they should. They have a collective bargaining system that they have to work through to go through with
So-
their stuff. So, the cost of your employees is, right. Bottom line is they need to be compensated for the time, is my argument, right? How you have to pay for that is how you have to do that.
Yeah.
Deputy Mayor.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Totally agree. I think everybody agrees we need to do something. But I think the second part of Councilmember Baldwin's question was, where is that money going to come from? I don't think Ms. Ryerson had a chance to answer that part of that. Where would that come from in the budget? The $205,000 in perpetuity.
per year.
And that's
400
that's just
not
not
biennium,
right? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And we're taught probably.
I don't know if Sherry heard you.
Yeah, no, I did. I was waiting. Sorry. If you're adding 5% on top of what you've already offered, if that's my understanding, obviously it's going to come from the various funds where the employees work. So, like Mr. Johnstone, who you're trying to get rid of, Mr. Mayor, his would be paid out of general fund, water fund, sewer fund a little bit because he works for all funds. Mine would be paid out of the general fund. City clerks would be paid out of the general fund. So it just depends on where the employee works, what funds pay for that.
And you have to take into consideration the collateral effect if we don't act upon that, which would be something that I have been fighting for over the past year, and that's that we will be starting to lose good people if we don't keep up with our general surroundings, and then the recruiting costs and and everything just makes it that even much more expensive than what it would be if we were simply to compensate evenly with the rest of the area. Councilmember Watson.
I was going to say the same thing. Productivity, you're lost by hiring new associates that way into the system,
Right.
And getting them trained and with other people work with them also. There's a couple of major unions last couple of weeks just approved between 7 and 8% increases for their staff there, and Social Security gave me 10%. So someplace in between there is the right number.
How did you get 10%?
Got 10%.
Watson.
That's nice.
But Councilmember Swatman is correct. I mean, these are numbers that I don't think anybody has faced ever, or at least in the last 40 years.
Not me.
Yeah.
I'm not that old.
Yeah.
Councilmember Evans?
I would just also be in favor of tit for tat. If it is 0.4% some year, then
Oh yeah. Exactly.
we come up with a structure that ties it to something. Sherry, you're saying $41,000 for the non-reps per 1%. What percent are non-reps of employees versus represented? That's a pretty small portion, isn't it?
I would have to get on my computer and look real quick for you.
Okay. But I mean, we have 160 employees?
Well, we have part-time seasonals, but average, about 160.
Okay.
But give me 3 minutes and I'll have that for you.
Okay. Again, I'm not opposed to any of this. I have to look at the bottom line as well, and where is it coming from? If we're talking $400,000 for the non-reps for a biennium, and they only make up 25% of the employees, then we're also talking, another.
Eventually, I would suspect, and that's part of what I contend is doing the right thing, because you got to do,
Well, we
the argument is obviously, would be the opposite. Would be like, oh well, we don't have the money to pay you what you should be paid.
No, but we have to balance the right thing every year at this time.
Yeah.
The right thing is to spend $500,000 at the senior center. Did we do that? No. But does anyone agree that's the wrong thing?
Sure.
That's the senior center isn't people, so we think of it a little bit differently. The right thing would be adding 2 more officers to Chief Jeter, getting, everything that was asked for in a decision card. They're asking for that because it's the right thing. It's our job to try and mitigate and manage how do we afford to pay the right thing. Not that it's not the right thing, just
Is the right thing, but yeah.
yeah.
It's
How do you pay for the right thing?
Right.
Manage it.
Yeah.
It's a long-standing thing too, right? It's not anything new it's not a new program, a new ad or something. It's something that the city's been doing for eons, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're on the cusp of a potential recession.
We've always done a COLA ever since I've been on the council, and I've been here for 2 centuries.
Oh,
century. Yeah.
Oh, buddy.
I just learned that the other day. Pretty amazing, huh?
You started in the late 1900s.
I have not been here for centuries, but there have been years when non-represented employees got 0.
True, but we still had this COLA in place, right?
Oh.
Meaning that there's a COLA. It's part of our procedure. Just like
There were years during the recession where non-represented.
Oh, well,
when
when it went
years back to back where non-represented employees got 0.
that was when it was negative or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, you can't take money away, right?
But if you're talking about balancing buying
Yeah,
power,
over the years, right? Yeah, so
in a
that's
recession, if you don't, your buying power is 20% more than it was.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
And that's what your argument is right now, is it's 20% down.
yeah, exactly. So that's why you probably don't.
Councilmember Baldwin.
So I guess, kind of as we're talking in a circle and then we're forming the circle, are we going to have that kind of data as far as, which budgets? Okay. Yeah, because I think the main thing is, we really do have to consider the bottom line too. And if I'm just trying to figure out, if we're going to have to take money from one place and move it, or I'm not sure how that's going to look. So it would be nice to have that information to kind of make a more, a better.
How the bottom line looks at when we get all done with the budget.
Yeah. But not against it.
I think you scared Ms. Ryerson off.
He's doing the research still, I think.
Oh,
Right,
okay.
right.
Working hard.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other.
Okay. Do we have any further open discussion? Councilmember Watson.
Thank you. It's not such a detailed subject as what you've been covering, but I went to CFF this month.
All right.
On December 1st, we had a great presentation from the Pierce County Aging Disability Resource Center from Leslie Hodgkinson, and talked about dialing 211. They have a real great resource on Meals on Wheels referrals, food banks, meal sites, senior market voucher programs, furniture bank assistance, rent and utility assistance, car repairs, and housing options, and home repairs, and so on. So there's a lot of staff there available to help if someone calls 211. So you're always seeing people out that need some type of assistance. These people are waiting, eager to help them out to get them into their needs that they need. So
Is this a state program?
it's a Pierce County program.
Oh, Pierce County.
Pierce
program.
County, yeah. So they're waiting to do that. And so
A place for like retirement homes and senior living and things like that.
I don't think about living, but they can give them a facility or get it paid for them and stuff. They do have monies for that. Healthcare too, so it was pretty good. But 211 is a resource for it. They have all the connections on
I
that.
believe we have Ms. I'm sorry, didn't mean to speak.
No,
over you.
I'll finish. Let her come back and I'll finish. I have a few more.
Okay. Ms. Ryerson, did you come up with any data?
I did. So the people represent 25% of your workforce, and that includes police, but they're 36% of your overall salary budget, the non-rep people.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So for
Roughly a quarter of the workforce, but it's paid a third of the.
so we're looking at a annual budget of about 1.2 to 1.4 million increase post if this were to go and the unions would.
Well, you can guarantee that if I'm a union member, I am not going to accept a mall COLA, right?
Right. And negotiations on that is going to start in March.
So, factor that into too, right? Because if you don't do the COLA for your
Well, that's where that was coming from. Yeah.
yeah.
You have to take all of those.
That is true. And we did not mean to cut you off. But...
That's okay. Thank
Okay.
you. We also talked about the Sumner High School community dinners they have down there and the Winter Festival going on. Sumner also has the winter holiday program updates they're doing down there, including the Senior Warm Funds program and future forums come in January. So please, if you're available when they bring this forward to us for the forums, please try and participate. It's a great thing to hear what the kids have to say about what they think about their community and their schools and so on.
What is that again?
The forum that we have, they'll have with the seniors come the first part of the year.
Forum?
The forum, yeah. And also, we've talked about the senior center a few times. Well, if you would like to come down and see what's going on the 15th and 16th, I'll be down there serving dinner to the seniors. Okay. If you'd like to join me between 11 and 1:30, we'd love to have you down there. So that's a seniors.
Is that a weekend or?
It's a Friday and a Thursday and a Friday.
Thursday, Friday. Okay.
Thursday, Friday.
What time?
Between 11 and 1:30. We'll be serving food to the seniors.
The lunch.
For lunch, yes,
Right.
yes. It's at the luncheon.
Early bird special.
Yeah, no. Just lunch. They all sit. Usually they go through and pick up their food. They're all going to sit down the Thursday and a Friday. This time they'll all sit down, and then we go out there and take the food to their tables and stuff. Then pick up afterward. So the staff it's easy for the staff. And the seniors can just leave when they're done eating. So
Okay.
you can talk to seniors that way. What's going on, and some more insight, which is really good.
I remember doing this time last year. It was a wealth of information.
Yeah, and we haven't done it in a couple of years, so it'd be nice to do it again because I used to do it all the time. One last thing, I had a corporate sponsor approach me today about the dog park. They wanted to help us do something to it. I don't know if the rest of the council will be aware of it. Allen York Park originally included a new dog park. When we put our current one in, it was all approved by the Reds live around there. But since the dog park has been there, I've received a lot of complaints about people because after night hours, we got the soccer moms and families there, and there's no parking for the people that use the dog park. You've heard in the past, we've had trees fall down in that area. The neighbors to the east have had the fences broken down and stuff. So it's been well received in our community, but I think they deserve something better than that. So as we're talking about moving City Hall and moving the old City Hall location, and parking for trailers out there, I'd like to keep in mind to maybe put a moving our dog park over there, and that could be a premier event for Beautify Bonnie Lake, either this year or next, especially since we have a corporate sponsor that wants to help us with that program too.
And who's the corporate?
I can't tell you that right now.
Oh, okay. We can talk about it. We just can't talk.
We can talk about it. So yes, we're working on that right now.
All right, Councilmember Rhodes, did you have your hand up or?
No, I was. The new plan shows two dog parks: a large dog and a small dog in similar areas.
So if we do something ahead of time, whatever we put in there will be portable. So we can. Right now, things we put in are portable, except for the fence, obviously. So if we have to move it, we will. But if we can make a whole new dog park next couple of years, that'd be great. We're trying to clear land, possibly.
Yeah.
Conversation.
Councilmember Fullerton.
Well, when Tom's done.
Yeah, I'm done. That's all I have. Thank you.
I'm sorry, council members. Okay. So speaking of parking.
Of course you are.
I'm wanting to, in the budget, I believe it was I don't know if it was part of the budget, but we had discussed turning lot number 4, the ballpark number 4, into a parking lot. And I was under the impression that we had many conversations during the council meetings, and that was the plan, to move forward and turn lot 4, ballpark 4, into parking for the boats.
For the trailers.
Boat trailers, right. And then at one of the last meetings, some of the council members seemed confused, like that wasn't what the plan was. And so I just want to clarify, because I know Ryan can't really move forward. He had the clear plan that he was going to be turning ballpark 4 into a parking lot for boat trailer parking. And then I'm confused now too. So I want to make sure going into next year that Ryan can move forward with the plans. So is that the plan for ballpark or to become boat parking eventually?
The ballpark itself.
The ballpark itself is supposed to be turned into additional boat parking because we have already repaved the extra parking lot.
I believe we'd asked that it come forward next year because it's not one. I don't believe it's in the budget. I don't believe.
Oh, it was.
Yeah, there's money in there, right?
Yeah.
No, we,
Well,
To
theoretically,
convert-
I mean,
to
budget hasn't been
convert-
passed yet.
convert that?
Yeah.
There was a decision card. I was asked to put together a
Oh, okay.
decision card for converting the field itself
Oh, okay.
to a parking lot. And I believe that was passed when decision cards were presented.
That
Yeah.
would be part of the budget that gets approved next week.
Right.
Yeah, so I just wanted to make sure and have clarity for Ryan and also for myself because I was kind of confused when.
So the clarity would be no,
Yeah.
not yet, but after next Tuesday,
After next
whereas
week.
you will be a part of the vote
Right.
if you decide to approve it.
we had some conversations about using the old public works facility as making enough sufficient parking to use that and not destroy a good ball field. That was our discussion we had. And whatever works best for us to have the parking available is great. And my first impression was we're going to just temporarily use ballpark 4 as a trailer parking and then make room for the public works area. That's what I thought we were going to do. But whatever we do, I want to make sure we have room for the trailers we just talked about, whichever is the most economical for us today to go forward with.
So, Mr. Johnstone.
Just quickly, I want to add, I remember mentioning this last time, if the focus becomes putting a parking lot on the current Public Works Center site, we did not prepare an estimate for that. So I can't tell you that the dollars that were approved for Field 4 would cover that project.
Then do what you're doing then.
And my impression was we'd have to have a SEPA study done anyway before we could do that, right? Because that's right around the
Either of those projects will require that, yeah.
Well, and also because we've already turned that extra lot that was for ballpark 4, that's already been turned into boat parking. So now if we have a little league game at ballpark 4, there's lost parking right there because that was 80 spaces and now it's how many boat launch or trailers?
Approximately 30.
Yeah. So we only have 30 boat trailer parking spaces right now. And people are going to try to park their car so that they can go to ballpark 4 to play their Little League games. And they're going to be really ticked off when they realize that's not for cars anymore. So that's going to be a big problem, having to walk across the lot or park where the senior center is and try to find your way through the woods to get to ballpark 4. So I think it would be more advantageous if we went ahead and just turned it into parking for the boat launch. Just my 2 cents.
Any further discussion on the matter? Or are we ready to move on? Okay, anybody else for open discussion before we move on to the next item? All right, seeing no other open discussion, we have a review of council minutes. Councilmember Watson?
We had one correction. We failed to give a council person, call him a council person.
I am all aflutter. We always have 2. What?
Just
Been called worse.
Yeah. Okay, and now we'll go on to the first discussion item of the night, which is on an update of the Right at Schools program. Mr. McEwen, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hopefully we can keep this brief. Basically, the school district and the city met as recently as last Friday to discuss our ongoing work in this topic. Right now, our new city attorney is drafting an amendment to the existing ILA, which we're hoping to have this week for both the school district and the city to review, edit, make comments on, and kind of get it into a final form. Ideally, what we're looking at doing is bringing that to the January 10th Finance Committee for a discussion, and then January 24th for a workshop or a larger discussion with the entire council for action at the next council meeting. at the same time, the school board will be reviewing and discussing this amendment so they can be kind of lockstep and we can move forward and getting Right at Schools. They are doing Right at Schools will be doing a presentation for the school board on December 14th. There's no action at that meeting, but it will be a presentation so the board will have a good understanding of what their administration is looking at bringing on.
And would that be a similar presentation to what we were?
Very similar.
Okay, that's what I thought. And actually, I believe our new city attorney is not probably drafting that right now. I believe she's in Washington advocating for the city of Bellevue. Is that right, Ms. Robertson? Oh, she's keeping quiet on it. So, Councilmember Watson.
So what do you anticipate?
Correct, Mayor. And I drafted most of it on the plane here. I'll have it by the end of the week. So, thanks.
What do you anticipate the impact to our budget will be with this change?
In 23, I don't expect to impact because we're planning on running, or we are running before and after care through the end of this school year and as well doing Action Day Camp. So we'll be getting a majority of the normal revenue through those streams. In 24, we have budget. We've looked at what a previous normal year was, and I think we have to go back to 2018, 2019 for those numbers. So the numbers we're pulling are revenue, expenses, salaries, breaking off recreation from before and after care. Based on that year's numbers, you're looking at a shortfall on the tune of about $420,000 if nothing changes.
And is that including the inflation rate that is?
That is not. That is 2019 numbers.
Okay. Councilmember Evans.
Where are we on the Parks and Rec side transitioning back as well?
Transitioning where?
Back to the school district?
They're not interested.
They're not?
No. We are beginning our discussions with the city of Sumner. We pulled and I want to thank the rec staff for doing a lot of the heavy work on pulling the numbers and pulling participation. Based on zip codes for the last 6 or so years, this Bonnie Lake zip code, so 9-1, which of course includes a lot of outside areas, about 40% of the attendees are coming from our zip code. About 44 come from Sumner. The rest come from county. So I think we have a strong discussion point with the city of Sumner because they're using our recreation program more than we are.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but in January of this year, we opted to give them the 6-month notice. Post that, we did a 1-year extension. Looks like we're peeling off half of that. Where are we sitting when that 1-year extension hits? Is the program over?
Ideally, no. That's what we're working on discussing with the school district. There is a small financial contribution that the school district will be entertaining as part of this amendment. It certainly will not be anywhere near the tune of $420,000. However, the school district administration feels that it could be palatable. So obviously they can't speak for their board members, just as we can't speak for council. But there will be a financial contribution from the school district to help fund the recreation program in 24.
And is the city of Sumner in any of these negotiations?
They've been invited to the table since day one.
And that was my question because I spoke with my counterpart, Ms. Hayden, down there back in February about this, and I was wondering how amenable that they have been and how much they've contributed to the talks.
They're interested in talking about recreation. They have no interest in before and after care, so we've been focused primarily on before and after care,
Gotcha.
and so they're not interested in any discussions in regards to before and after care.
Yeah. If we could get them to split that cost for the Parks and Rec side of things, that might make it a much more. I've always been in favor of it. I just never been in favor of us managing it, and I don't want to see it go away. But I also feel like we're going to get hung out because the school district told us 5 years ago, if you don't take it, it's going away, and we took it. And now if we sell them that, they're like, sorry, it's just going to go away if you don't want it. So
I appreciate all the work you and everyone's been doing on that. We've been discussing it for a year now, and glad you're on it, and hopefully we'll get some resolve soon.
Councilmember Fullerton.
Yeah, so the the Sumners, my understanding, as soon as we're done with our discussions for the before and after care, which it sounds like we pretty much are figuring that out, then Sumner would be interested in coming to the table, and hopefully we can get them to come to some of the meetings.
Okay, because I know you've been part of that committee.
Right.
Well, Councilmember Baldwin.
I just want to make sure that I'm understanding correctly here. So for the before and after school care, I know that Right At Schools had come to speak with us about that, right? To be basically a replacement. So you're saying that we would have a loss of revenue of $420,000 by removing what we have in place and having them take over, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so then I guess what I thought as a council we had talked about Right At Schools being the ball being in the court of the school district.
Correct. And the amendment to the existing ILA gives the school district the ability to do that.
Okay, so then that's the decision that we're going to be making upcoming here?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
The loss comes in, the before and after was subsidizing a heavy portion of the Parks and Rec.
Gotcha.
It
So
brought
when
in all the money.
That's gone. It's 100% off. And those numbers, that 400,000, that peeled off before and after care
Yes.
costs.
And Action Day Camp.
Okay, but not just the revenues, but
No revenue expenses, that's
okay,
carved them off completely.
okay.
And I know one of the things that Councilmember Climens was interested in was private or corporate sponsorship coming in on the rec program, not necessarily the before and after. Has any progress been made in entertaining that?
We have looked around. We unfortunately don't have the benefit of having a large community center or recreation center that a private company could come in and take over and run, because a majority of our recreation programs are run through the school district. The school district is, in a sense, subsidizing about $800,000 in facility rental fees a year that they would charge someone else to use the amount of the facility use that we use through our recreation program. So that's something that would be hard to make up for a private entity, because we don't have that dedicated space or those dedicated locations for a private entity to come in and run, because we really don't have any locations ourselves. It's through our interlocal agreements with the school district that we're able to use their facilities for free.
How many participants do you have in a year?
I'm going to have to go in the numbers that I looked at. I don't have the exact numbers, but in previous years, it was anywhere but somewhere around up to 5,000 participants.
So that's roughly, and given the percentage that you gave us, 1,000 from us, 2,000, and I'm really heavily rounding down.
Very loose ballpark, yes.
Okay.
I'm just looking at that's an equivalent of $80 per participant to break even.
I think when I looked at it, it was closer to $100 a participant that you would have to increase to break even.
Yeah, and I'm not necessarily in favor of breaking even. Just
I think you wouldn't have
Yeah. There has to be some subsidy. It's for the greater good, and I'm okay taking the loss on that.
Okay. Deputy Mayor.
Thanks. I hate to even ask this because you've been working on it so long and everything, but the before and after care program, what was that bringing in? If we're looking at how much was that subsidizing?
For 800,000. It brought in about 800,000, and then the Action Day Camp was like 273, and then regular was around 420. It brought in about roughly 1.4 million for the whole entire program, but 800,000 was from before and after, so it helped to subsidize any losses. So the program was taking care of itself. It didn't need money until 2020.
Right.
Yeah,
and that's where I'm kind of
We've never had a budget item for this particular program because it didn't need one. So now we're going to have to add a budget item if we get rid of the before and after program.
Okay. Any further discussion on the matter? All right. Well, let's move on to our next discussion item of the night, which is on the adoption of the 23-24 biannual budget. All right, guys. Council, floor is y'all's.
I'm good with it.
Good.
Well,
all right, Councilmember Swampman, was your hand up? Or,
yes.
Okay, good.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of technical questions. I wanted to make sure I was reading it right and stuff. I went over it with a little bit of staff, but I wanted to make sure, on the police allocation that came out the way we wanted it to there, because if you're looking at our current packet, I guess it's on page 32 where the police FTE counts are. It looks, the way it came out, we added some positions there, right? So we added the correct amount. That because we went from the police sergeant a count of 5 to 7 apparently or something, right? Yeah. And so that looks good. That's the way it worked out, I guess. It was good. We're good. We're good with that. Okay. Yeah. Good with that one. Little technical question. I also noticed, I think on page 35 there, we still list, because, we list out-of-state travel requests for pre-approved out-of-state travel, right? And on page 35, we're still, sending a mysterious staff position away. We have IS manager. I thought we got rid of that position. So we have a travel allocation for that. I don't know if that's supposed to be still, we got rid of that position. So how could we allocate travel to it? Because there's two entries there. That must, again, it's pre-approved. We can always post-approve travel requests. But
Ms. Ryerson.
Yeah, I can answer that for you. When we discussed the position, Mr. Mayor, you agreed to combine the IS manager with the ASD. So Chuck McEwen is serving both as the IS manager and the ASD director.
And where are you traveling to besides going to see the Penguins?
That is the great state of Texas.
Oh, I can tell you that is not a pleasure trip, Councilmember Swampman. Where in Texas would you be going?
San Antonio.
Oh, okay. Not bad. Oh, okay. But what time of year, I guess, is the... Okay. So you're still, that's 90 to 100 degree weather. Yeah.
So will you be traveling for IS and for ASD? So 2 travels?
That's
so just
the way
you,
we
but
directed. Just you, not
so
2 people.
Is that 1 trip or is there 2 trips involved? Okay, so we can probably cross one of these out.
Well, they're 2 separate
each year
conferences. One is
okay.
for risk management and one is for Tyler Technology.
Okay, got it.
So there's, we at the very least need to change the staff position to indicate then that's the AS director or what have you, right? Administrative Services Director. Because we can't, it lists the staff position as IS manager. It doesn't exist anymore. The staff position is actually the Administrative Services Director.
We're just changing.
Depends. Yeah, it depends on the vernacular, I guess. Yeah. Councilmember Swap.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure.
It just exists in one person.
Right. Exactly.
One thing I have to say to you, Mr. McEwen, is when you go to San Antonio, remember the Alamo.
Is there 2 allocations for that?
May I?
Yes, Ms. Ryerson.
Councilmember Swatman. So the reason it kind of still says IS manager, if you will, since he's still serving in the IS manager role, I have budget allocations for the IS manager budget as well. So he is split, I think it's 60-40 between the roles. He's still serving as both. So I need to make sure that it goes to the appropriate budget allocation. I mean, if you want me to change it from IS manager to say ASD director, I can certainly do that. But it still needs to be allocated amongst the 2 various budgets. And what you're seeing is travel for 2 different years for the Eden, the Tyler product.
Oh, right. Yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah, you need to allocate that to the kind of the bucket, if you will, or what have you.
On page
Correct.
32, Chuck's position is listed as ASD/IS manager.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
So it is a dual role as defined in our
Right.
FTE.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's
23 and 24.
Yeah.
23 and 24.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. That makes sense. Yep.
So you are the IS manager. Okay, yeah, because I'm seeing the ASD/IS, like you said.
He's doing the
also an
role technically, right?
yeah.
The IS manager position is no longer. He's doing the functions apparently.
It's been combined, kind of like Woody was the ASD and the city clerk. And when Woody left, we separated city clerk, and that became a separate position.
Sure. Yeah.
And IS is not information services, correct?
It is correct.
Because I'm seeing it listed twice.
Yes, because I have to keep the history on there, but you'll see under 23 and 24, there's no allocation.
Oh, gotcha. Because of the change.
Correct.
Yep.
Okay.
No, another thing I had for the budget is I'm worried about where we're at with, of course, the utility rates, but that's not really a budgetary kind of per se thing, other than kind of a technical note about, the CIP allocations that we have in there. I'm kind of worried about how they show up and how I'm supposed to treat the budget. Because if you look at our comprehensive plan for water and sewer, then the comprehensive plan for water and our sewer, we've always tried to attach the actual projects to the actual plan itself, right? So when they come through committees, you look at CIP number or whatever, or CWP or different things, and so you could look at your comp plan and you could look at the project, and then you'd have your allocation that you could follow it all the way through. And specifically, like an example would be, we had something with the CWA thing that we were hunting for. We have this water right out there that's like a number one issue for me, because we have the ability to get a water right from a basin out here. We've tried to do that with that one piece of property that we bought and failed. But that water right is time limited, and we need to go after that. We've had an allocation. It was in the comp plan. We had monies. There's $380,000 in a previous comp plan to pursue that. We've studied that a little bit, and we know it's extraordinarily expensive. But it's a water right that would be permanent, and you're just simply never going to get another water right. You're in my mind, you're crazy not to go after it. In the words of an ex-council member, Hamilton, you're a criminal for not going after it. But it's never going to come around again. You can't get water rights, so they're ultra important, and I think we need to allocate for that. But again, that's CIP stuff, so that's water. Later.
I don't recall discussing that in our CIP, and we spent a good.
Well, it got dropped out of the CIP, so that's why I'm a little bit, mentioning it, because it's concerning to me. So I'm like seeing this budget, and I'm like seeing that, oh well, we'll just go ahead and leave that one off of there, and we'll just ignore that because it's too expensive out there, right, with the water. So, I can deal with that one later. What I'm probably having the hardest time dealing with is the allocations for the capital improvements with the Sumner sewer plant, right? So I don't know if we came up with something on that, but nobody's been able to, again, connect Bonnie Lake's responsibility to pay for capital projects in Sumner for O&M type projects for their sewer plant. Don't know what the scenario is there, but right now, the way the budget is laid out, there's like $700 and some odd $1,000 worth of capital improvements attributed for Bonnie Lake writing a check for Sumner to improve their plant. They're not changing the capacity of it because we buy capacity down there. We own capacity. We don't own any of their plant. So what are we going to do with that? What's the strategy? And that's probably more for, I don't know if, the mayor's. Where are we at with that? Because nobody's said, oh, you read agreement wrong, right? It's right here on line 27. Bonnie Lake shall contribute all of the capital, right?
Well, I can tell you we're still, that I discussed that matter with our new city attorney, and I believe we're probably still at the advent of that since we just, since she just came on board, with it. So it's been addressed. I don't know what has been done to progress with that just yet, but we will have an answer for you. As you know, it's not going to be done before the end of the year.
Yeah, indeed. Of course. Yeah, everybody wants to go on vacation, right?
Right.
So do we have some commitment in the first quarter or something that we'd have a good answer on that? At least something to argue about?
Well, what I would say in the first quarter, we're definitely going to address it. I don't know if it'll be a good answer.
No,
but-
just some kind of an answer, whether we're on the hook for that or not, right?
Yes.
Because it's my contention we're not.
Right.
But maybe we want to. But
Yeah.
again, my contention is that maybe we're not, and we need to, help with that conversation with Sumner
Yeah.
to say, hey, we are not going to be paying for half of your dryer.
No, and that's it. And I don't know if this allays your concerns on that, but it is an issue that has not been ignored, nor will it be ignored. It's something that we are working on.
Well, that's good enough. I have your word, Mr. Mayor.
Yes. Councilmember Evans.
As someone who's currently working on a commercial lease agreement, completely different than what I understand as a residential lease agreement, we have to pay not only for the square footage that we use, but a triple net, which is the maintenance costs, the insurance costs, and the property tax cost split equally amongst ours. And it sounds very similar to a triple net fee that Sumner is charging us, whether or not it's in our agreement or not. But that's really what it sounds like. If we leased out this building and moved out and the roof leaked, I promise you our new agreement would show that the new tenant would be responsible for that. However, if we rent the house across the street to someone, the city would be on the hook to replace that same roof.
Exactly.
So, right.
But remember, the trick is, of course, we're co-tenants, right? So there's
we
a
would pay
different
our portion of because that's what I'm negotiating right now. Is we're taking up 85% of the square footage that we're using, and so our triple net and everything is based on that percentage, that 85% of the triple net.
Because see, if you're moving, if you and I are moving into a house, and we go to purchase this house, if it's just me buying the house, I'm buying a smaller house. But if you and I are going to buy the house, we're probably buying a little bit of a bigger house than we need, maybe, because I know you're going to pay for half of it, right?
Yeah.
So that's the kind of scenario there.
Right. In a residential scenario, though, my rent would, you as the landlord would, but them as a commercial landlord, as Sumner is, they're a whole different ballgame.
See, my contention is that when they do this purchase, they're going to be more aware of the cost of it if they know that they're going to have to pay for the full cost, right? Because they got to bill their tenants just like they bill us.
Yeah.
So, but the arrangement that they kind of think they're doing right now is that, Bonnie Lake's going to pay for half of it. So I'll get the super duper one because I know Bonnie Lake's going to pay for half of it.
Councilmember Baldwin.
I think the big issue at hand here is not that I don't think that Councilmember Swatman is saying that we aren't on the hook for a certain percentage or portion of it. I think it's that we are not allowed to make a lot of the decisions that they're making because we're not at the table making those decisions, and so they just tell us how much things are going to be, and then that's the end of it. And I think I think with this being a part of the budget and having the CIP for, I think, what is it, 3 million, 3.2 million, and then 9 million in 2024, I think if we just pass it, that portion of it just seems like we're not putting enough pressure on government to make sure that they do something about it. And so that, I think, is the issue at hand. I think sometimes when you just, pass things and you're like, oh, it's fine, government tends to not do much about it.
Well,
take their time with it.
That is the scenario that you're talking about right now is exactly what we're addressing because none of us at this table are satisfied with that particular type of relationship, which is why we're approaching them. And we're going to be redoing the ILA that that we have with them. So in that regard, that we don't have any details on how that's going to change just yet, but as far as going forward with the way it's been for the last 10 years, that will be changing. Oh, Councilmember.
If I could right now, what we're kind of all describing a couple different things. What you're describing is co-ownership,
Yeah.
whereas we're leasees.
Right.
Yeah.
And maybe in this discussion, we talk about a purchase or a opt-in to co-own this rather than an ILA. It's a split ownership where we do have
Right. We have
the ability to
right.
control those costs and,
Yes.
and have a voice there.
Yes.
Because no different than if the landlord at my building says, I'm going to put in a new air conditioner, that's $800,000. You're paying for it because that's what your lease says.
Yeah.
I'll be like, whoa, there's nothing wrong with our air conditioner. Yeah, but when you guys move out, I want a nice one there and I want you to pay for it.
Right.
By our contract,
Yeah.
we would be on the hook for that. You know?
Exactly.
It's the same with city of
Well-
or King County when the Mariners needed a new roof. The Mariners did not pay for their roof. King
No.
County paid for the roof because King County owns it. So they have a more residential style agreement because they probably have a lot deeper pockets than lawyers than King County did. And hopefully we can make that match a little more where we actually do have a voice in that.
Well, there is some hope there in the fact that I can tell you that within the state of Washington, the RCWs, that tenants, as you put it, have a lot more rights than landlords like to think that they do. And your particular scenario, it actually is one to where they would have to go through a few more hoops than just saying we're putting an $800,000, and you're paying for it. Doesn't work that way completely. So it's that's one of the things that we'll be touching upon as far as trying to find some sort of niche or advantage that we can have in this in renegotiating this. I saw both hands up, Deputy Mayor and Councilmember Watson. Oh, well then, Councilmember Watson.
They actually came to CDC tonight, and we had several of them there talking to us about it. And I made it very clear to them, and we wanted to have them come to our meetings, make us aware of what they want to do, so we have to be part of that discussion, why they're going to spend that kind of money, and why we have to pay for part of it too. So they know we want them up here. They can help them make those decisions, the final decision, not just make it, here's how much you owe us. So they're going to bring it forward to us too. So I think the door is opening for us to have that two-way conversation.
Well, it very well could be. I was wondering. I relayed this story at the tree lighting ceremony, but when I was down at the Santa Parade earlier that day, my colleague Mayor Hayden pelted me with some bubble gum and knocked me right here. And I was wondering where that came from. So maybe this is where the whole thing came from. Okay, Councilmember Baldwin.
I guess in regards to what Councilmember Evans was saying, is your intention to go to Sumner and just try to negotiate some sort of ILA, or are you willing to put some pressure on them as far as?
Oh, I am most definitely willing to put some pressure on them.
I'm hoping that all options are looked at. Not just hey, let's go into.
Yeah, not trying to, jump you or on that, but yes, that's exactly what it is.
Okay.
One of the reasons why.
Mayor,
go ahead.
I might interject. Under the terms of our existing agreement, we do have an annual meeting with them. It's called the Joint Advisory Committee.
Okay.
That's attended by the mayors, chair of the CDC, Dan Swatman was there, myself, other staff members from Public Works staff.
Okay.
And at that meeting that we had this October, not only do they present their annual budget to us, we have an opportunity to review that and discuss our concerns with them. But their city administrator also brought up the need to amend the ILA, as there's a number of outdated language in that ILA. So it is something that they're on board with working with. Maybe they don't have the same concerns we have, but both parties do agree that the terms of that ILA do need to be revisited next year. And the city attorney has copies of the existing ILA and is in the process of reviewing that.
Yeah. Okay. Do we have anything else concerning the budget?
Yeah.
Okay, Councilmember Fullerton.
Yes, please. I am looking at the comprehensive plan. I believe that's on the full council for the next meeting, but I'm just trying to figure out when we signed up for this comprehensive plan. So maybe these are some questions that could be answered next week. Is there a possibility of creating a resolution to get out of the GMA? Because we're looking at $250,000. I know that the city, the public works, I mean, we need new systems, new computer programs to be able to be up and running. So, you know, $250,000 would be a big, huge cut out of that major bill if we didn't have to, if we weren't forced to pay this. Because if we're not in compliance by certain years with this particular plan, then they're saying that they can take away our entitlements, and that under RCW 3670A 340, that they have the right to take away entitlements, which that doesn't seem like that's possible, because if we took them to court, we would win. An entitlement is pretty much supposed to be a guarantee, right? So if you don't do this, then you're gonna lose this. If you don't do this, then you're going to not be able to apply for all of the grants. You're not going to be able to get taxes for liquor profit taxes, liquor excise taxes. They could temporarily rescind the city's authority to collect real estate excise tax. What's the benefit for us to be in this program if we don't comply and we don't get in line with everything that they want us to do? Because all of the upgrades, everything that they want from us for their 2050 plan is going to cost our citizens, you know, millions of dollars, plus the fact that they're possibly going to lose the right to use natural gas to heat their homes. They're going to have to go to fully electricity to heat their homes, which is expensive. So how is that a benefit to our citizens? And then we're having, on top of that, we're being forced to do a comprehensive periodic update to let the state know that we're in line and we're trying to comply with all of their new rules. And we're going to pay $250,000 out of our taxpayer funds for this study. So I'm just trying to figure out, how did we get into this? Why are we in it? How does it benefit us? And I realize these are RCWs, so these are law, but this is a program that somewhere, some point, we signed up for this Growth Management Act. And we don't have to be in it. I was trying to read through some of the RCWs, and you click on one and it takes you to 10 more. And then you click on those 10 and you read through all of those, and then there's 10 more. So it's very complicated. It's very hard to get through, and I've been working on it. But under some of the RCWs, it looks like we can actually do a resolution, adopt a resolution to take us out of the agreement. Oh, I was doing hair there. Let's see. We could adopt a resolution to remove us, the county or the city, from the program, and I believe that's under 3670A 040.
All right.
And so I don't
sorry.
know if there's ways for us to look into getting out of the program, if this is something that we signed up for, or if this GMA is an actual RCW that is a law that we can't back out of. But I would like to find out, because when you're saying that if you don't comply and you don't do what we want you to do, that seems a little bit like coercion, which could be considered, I don't even want to say the words, So,
Well, Mr. Vodopich will address the issue as much
Yeah.
as he can.
Yeah, yeah, well,
tonight. Yeah.
so maybe, I mean, that might be something we can get some answers to those particular questions.
Sure.
And
I'll-
we also have our city attorney who.
Yeah, and I'll take a stab at it. Since, I know Councilmember Swatman says he's been around for 100 years. I've been around since the enactment of the Growth Management Act.
Been here for 2 centuries.
2 centuries. So I haven't been around for 2 centuries, but I was working in local government, still am, hopefully, when the Growth Management Act was instituted in 1990. So the Growth Management Act is codified as an RCW, as you've stated. In 1990, it came about, and it was applicable to the fastest growing cities and counties in the state of Washington. And so we are obligated, given our growth rate, and have been under the Growth Management Act here in Pierce County since 1990. There is an opt-out provision. However, it applies to, and I don't know it verbatim, and I know we'll have Jason Sullivan here next week, and he can certainly add clarity to that. But it depends on your growth rate and the size of the county population. And my recollection is that there's only 1 or 2 counties in the state of Washington that have the ability to opt out of the state's Growth Management Act. What we have on next week's full council agenda items that came through CDC this evening is the acceptance of the Department of Commerce grant. And as Mr. Sullivan explained to members of the CDC tonight, we're obligated to do this work regardless. So if we want to supplant that work with the Department of Commerce funds to the tune of, I think it was $125,000, we can accept that grant. We can choose not to accept that grant, but we still have to do the work.
So, I mean, I know the reason why we didn't accept the original $125,000 grant. What Jason, I believe it was in June of 2022, where we had discussed the comprehensive plan grant for $125,000. And we opted out of that because it was going to require us to make too many changes. And this $250,000 here is based off of the price that we're going to pay without the $125 grant, which we opted out of in June.
I'll have to defer to Jason when he's here next week.
Because of all of the requirements and the fine print that was in it, we chose not.
I think we're talking about two different grants. So we did opt out of an earlier one, but the one that Jason brought forward tonight through CDC is a different grant that does not have some of the items.
It doesn't have all of the red tape that we have to swim through.
And Ms. Robertson, I did see you did appear. Did you have anything you'd like to add to this?
Sure. Thanks, Mayor. Thank you for the question, Councilmember Fullerton. Sorry, it told me I was muted. You can hear me all right, can't you?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. You guys are completely black. I can't see any of you, but I'm glad you can see me. So the couple of things here. One, because you're in Pierce County, you cannot opt out of GMA. There was a time when certain cities or counties could opt in that weren't necessarily required. Pierce County's never been in that. So Bonnie Lake and all other cities in Pierce King and many of the other counties, most other counties in Western Washington have to comply with GMA. With regard to the power that the state has, under the state constitution, subdivisions of the state and under state law, cities have to do what the legislature tells them they have to do. As a code city, you have home rule. It means that you can do anything that the legislature hasn't told you you can't. But when the legislature gives direction, like GMA, like that you have to adopt the building code. I heard a reference to the new building code that's going to be coming up in the next iteration about not allowing natural gas. You are required by state law to adopt those. So with regard to GMA, you have to do it. With regard to the building code, the only flex with regard to making it more strict, you cannot make it less strict. So unfortunately, you only have the power the legislature says you do, and you do not have the power to disobey these laws. Does that make sense?
Yeah. The other thing, though, is that if a law is created that is repugnant of the Constitution, so if this is stricter than the Constitution, then is it constitutional? And because if it's found that it's not constitutional, then it should be null and void.
Well, the only remedy that a city would have if it disagreed with a state law that mandated cities do or don't do something would be to file a lawsuit to ask a judge to throw it out. Short of that, I mean, you generally have to comply. There are penalties that the state can take. They don't usually go that far. It's a nuclear option. But for, as you mentioned, they can withhold certain revenues, certain grants. With regard to GMA, to my knowledge, the governor's only done that once, or maybe they just threatened to do it once because it's considered the nuclear option. But the withholding of revenues, they absolutely can do that, and they can keep you from getting transportation dollars. They can keep you from doing a lot of things. Because, as I said, cities are subdivisions of the state. They ultimately have the say-so on what cities can and cannot do.
Well, isn't an entitlement considered absolute? Therefore, to threaten to take away an entitlement or to coerce to take away an entitlement, that seems like that would be against the law and unconstitutional. So would we have standing on that?
The Washington State Constitution says that divisions of the state, and we have only the power that the legislature gives us, and absolutely have the kind of like being a minor. What the parents say goes, whether you like it or not. So unfortunately, that's the way it is. So. And getting revenue passed through revenue is, I don't know if it would be considered an entitlement, but even if it is, it's something that the state allows cities to exist. The states can take things away.
And
not a fun answer, but it is the accurate answer.
And Ms. Robertson, correct me if I'm wrong, but if we were as a city entity to sue under this, it would be to the state, meaning that we would be it would be a state constitutional issue, not a U.S. constitutional issue.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct. And you'd have to file suit in Thurston County because if you're suing the state, that's where you sue.
Right.
Yeah, but like the Washington State Constitution is actually more strict than the U.S. Constitution.
It depends on the issue that you're talking
Yeah.
about.
It depends on the issue generally. But as I said, cities are subdivisions of the state. And we take our powers directly from the state.
Now, I can probably speak for Ms. Robertson as well as me. We're probably not constitutional scholars right now, but I believe that what you're suggesting, Councilmember Fullerton, is that if we were to try to take our marbles and leave, there would be a lot more financial consequence to us than the $250,000 that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
It would, and I believe that's what Ms. Robertson is alluding to as well. We would be punished,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't want to be punished.
Yeah, but like the things that this GMA is going to have us be doing, from now until their 2050 plan is like unreachable. And it's going to be very, very expensive, and it's going to cost our citizens dearly. But it's not just our citizens; it's like the whole entire state. I mean, this is crazy stuff. It's scary.
Talk to the state senators and state representatives about.
Oh, I will be. But I wanted to figure out if we had any standing as council members before I, go. I don't want to, go and start saying, oh, we don't want to do this, and then find out what I just found out tonight. So I don't want to start skipping stones.
Sure, you reference, but not we.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was the other thing. But I'm just trying to clarify and figure out if we have any standing to back out of this, if this is something that we signed up for. If yes, then what year did we sign up for it? Or is it something that the Pierce County signed up for? But it sounds like because Pierce County is growing at a rate of 10% or greater, which I believe was the threshold that it had back in 1995, then because we're part of Pierce County, we got pushed into it.
Now, with that, and with the question that you have, Ms. Robertson, and I know that you have made this offer. If you do have those questions, I would encourage you to email Ms. Ms. Robertson about that, and she can probably dig up some of the history on the GMA and tell you why. To me, it just seems like the social contract theory that the whole that we were founded on. We have to, to be part of the group, we have to give up things. It's not like we can be fully independent on everything that we do. But that talking to the clouds when it comes to that. As far as particulars and everything, yeah, I would direct questions to our city attorney. You can probably answer those.
Thank you.
This is one of the primary purposes of the Pierce County Regional Council.
Right.
Yeah.
And talking Vision 2050. 2 years ago is Vision 2040. 5 years before that is Vision 2020. So it's a constantly growing and changing. It'll always be moving. However, in our comprehensive plan based on Vision 2040 and 2050 have shown, we've exceeded all of our growth targets. So that is not a concern. We have the ability to annex as well to encompass some of those growth targets if we ever do fall short. However, we're exceeding those by leaps and bounds. That being out of compliance on that is not a grave concern.
Deputy Mayor.
And correct me if I'm wrong, it's a target. It's not, if you
No.
don't hit it, right? It's
Right.
like,
Yeah.
okay, we didn't hit it. So
Yeah, there can't be an
that's
absolute.
a good.
And our comprehensive plan is voted on by the regional council and the not only the Pierce County or the Puget Sound Regional Council. So it's I initially voted down Pierce County's comprehensive plan because it didn't meet some of the targets, and they had to go back and they were out of compliance, and they were able to go back and fix those. The next time they presented it, it was approved. I think there was probably only 2 or 3 that were ever not approved initially, but after a few changes were approved. I was on the growth management board at that time in the Puget Sound Regional Council, and got to see that firsthand. And everything is built with the intent of making cities better. Like an email I sent out earlier, we don't stop at city limits, even though that's who we represent. It's all about the growth of the region. Counties shrink, municipalities grow. That's the whole purpose of it.
Councilmember Evans, that actually brings up an interesting point that Ms. Robertson and I were talking about our representation on the Puget Sound Regional Council. I do know that you're a member and
On
that
the-
way.
Yeah, for the Pierce County Regional Council.
Pierce County.
Yeah.
Do we have? Ms. Robertson, please remind me: are there any openings on the Puget Sound Regional Council that we could?
It's done through the Pierce County Regional Council. So
Okay.
it's elected officials from Pierce County, and then there are members. So the Puget Sound Regional Council consists of 4 counties: King, Pierce, Thurston, and Snohomish. And so there's representatives from each one of those. Top executive changes each year from the executive of that county. I believe last year, Executive Dan Meyer was the executive of that. Next year, it'll be another one, and it's just on a rotation. Every year, this last meeting that we had in November, because we don't have one in December, the Puget Sound Regional Council appointed members to the Growth Management Community or Growth Management Board, Executive Board, the Transportation Board. So there are representatives. I'm not one of those at the Puget Sound level, but Pierce County does have representation there that you are able to go through and reach out to them on that. But the Vision 2050 is adopted by the Puget Sound Regional Council.
It's voted on independently on each county before it's brought forward to that for the overall. That's one of the few things that gets voted on as an entirety. There was no hesitation from any one of the member cities that are part of that didn't vote yes on that.
Okay. Do we have anything further to discuss tonight on the budget issue? Okay. Well, on that very informative note, I don't believe we have any more discussion. So the on AB 22-139, that is going to be on next week's consent agenda?
Yes, it is.
Okay, good. Well, we don't have any executive or closed session tonight, so we are adjourned.